Hey, it's Pastor Dave Schreffler. It's time to do another gander at the gospel. Time to take a look at where the gospel might be calling us this week to live out God's word, to serve others, to love God with our whole heart, mind, and soul. This is All Saints Sunday tomorrow. So not only do we turn our clocks back tonight, but we lift up the saints who have passed away since last All Saints Sunday, but we also remember those saints in our lives that have taught us so much about faith, and we remember them. So the gospel for this coming Sunday, for tomorrow, for All Saints, comes to us from the Gospel of St. Matthew. It is chapter 5, verses 1 to 12. This should sound very familiar to you, so I'm just going to go ahead and read it. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. Then he began to speak and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. This is the gospel of the Lord. It's a story that's told about a man who was in the hospital. He had cancer. He was receiving cancer treatment, and he really craved some food that he just wanted to have some normalcy while he was in the hospital, and he had a specific type of food that he craved. So his friends snuck the food into his hospital room, and it was a big hamburger and French fries, and so he was really looking forward, anticipating this feast. And so he takes a big bite of the hamburger, and because of the cancer treatments, it had taken away his sense of taste. And he looked at his friends, he looked at the hamburger, and he said to them, "This stinks." This is true about death, my friends. Death stinks. Say it with me. Death stinks. There's no way around this reality. No one looks forward to their own death. Oh, there might be a few people, somebody who is really suffering from some kind of an illness like cancer, or somebody who has reached a point in their life, they're so old that they just cannot do anything anymore except breathe. Maybe those people look forward to death, but the rest of us, we are afraid. We worry about death. And the lessons today, I know I only read one lesson, and that's from the Gospel of Matthew, but we have lessons from Revelation, and we're going to talk about the Gospel of John a little bit, but all of the lessons speak the good and the bad about death. Revelation, if you look at the text for Revelation, and we get this image in the book of Revelation, this eschatological banquet, right? The heavenly feast. We have people standing around God's throne, robed in white, waving palm branches, shouting, "Salvation belongs to our God who is seated on the throne and to the Lamb." This is an image that we get of what heaven will be like. It'll be like a party. That's the best image that we have about heaven, is that it's like a banquet. It's like a party. We have those. We read not too long ago the image of the king that's throwing a feast and inviting all people that he can to come to this banquet. In the Gospel of John, though, I just want to raise this for a minute, the story of the raising of Lazarus, the very good friend of Jesus, along with Mary and Martha. At one point, Jesus and Martha are talking, and they're outside the tomb of Lazarus, and Jesus says to open up the tomb, and Martha says, "Lord, don't, he stinketh." That's the King James Version. Again, death stinks. This is All Saints Sunday. And from the lessons, from this whole theme, we get a glimpse for God's will for all people, willing that we will all share in the future party that God is preparing for all of us. Tears will be wiped away. There will be no want for food or drink. Death will be no more. Now that sounds good to us. It sounds good to all of us. These promises from God are what give us hope every day, or they should, because death is so scary for many people. There are way too many unanswered questions about what happens at the time of death. People try really hard when they're with somebody who has lost a loved one, and they say things that they're trying to be helpful. They say things like, well, God needed another angel, or they'll say it was God's plan. And I know people are trying desperately to say something that will be comforting, but what the family hears when they hear trite sayings like that is that, well, God must have killed my brother or sister or father or mother or childhood friend, right? Because God needs them for God's own purposes. Instead of bringing some level of comfort, what they walk away feeling like Job, right? Feeling like they deserve undue suffering. To those statements, I have to call a foul. I have to throw the yellow flag on that. God is not a God of taking, my friends. Our God is a God of receiving. God receives our loved ones. He welcomes them into the kingdom. God does not take our loved ones for divine purposes. There are only 3 people in the Bible that we get a sense that God took. We have Enoch, we have Elijah, and maybe Mary or Moses, depending on your theology. What we do at the time of death, though, shows who we trust. I remember one day talking to a friend of mine, Pastor Titus Clark. He's from Liberia, and he talked about how at the time of the death of a loved one in Liberia, they participate in this thing called the wake. Now, we have kind of lost this tradition in America, but the wake is a time for the community to come and sit with the family who has lost a loved one. They bring meals, they share companionship, they are there to support them, and this goes on for quite a while, a week, 2 weeks, maybe more. In our country, we've sort of put away the wake, and we have this viewing, right? We have this time that we can go and express our condolences to the family. But the problem with the viewing is the shortness of time that people set aside. It lacks personal involvement. It lacks real time with the family. The viewing does allow the public to share in this public loss, this expression of grief, but it's too impersonal. See, the wake, when they share those hours of sitting and sharing the meals and talking and remembering, it's a time that supports the family and understanding how a death affects the whole community, not just the family. But it's clear to me why we've done away with the wake and we just do the viewing. It's hard enough as a pastor for me to get people to do a funeral anymore, let alone to have people set aside time to be with the family for an extended period of time. I do more graveside services than I do funeral services, and it's because we try to remove the sting of death out of our lives. We want to avoid death. We want to avoid talking about death. And so, I think this is the wrong way for us to handle death. If we trust the glory of God, that it's greater than the glory of life, then we need to stare death right in the face and say, I'm not afraid of you, death, because I trust in the promises of God. That's why I am confident that God does not will the death of people. God does not take people from us, because God promises all eternal life. If God created us, why would God destroy the very things that God created? But of course, we don't like death. We fear death. We don't want to consider life without our loved ones. We work hard at binding people to ourselves. Now I know why we do this. Because these loved ones, we love these people. We love the life that we build with these people. How would it sound to you if your spouse came home one day or a friend said, I'd be okay. If you died today, well, I'd be all right. That doesn't sound very good to us. What we could say is, if you die today, I would be heartbroken. I will not know how I'm going to continue on without you, but I trust in knowing that God will be with me and it will be okay. You will be okay. I will be okay, because God will take care of both of us. God welcomes you into the kingdom, and the community, our friends and family, will embrace and take care of me. Hospice workers spend a lot of time working with the family of a loved one who is dying, and they try to help the family release their loved one into God's care, not to bind them to this earth through their grief. We must trust God enough to entrust our loved ones to God's care. No one wants to see our loved ones die, but death is a reality in this life. We can run from death. We can try to do all of the exercises. We could try to delay death. We could try to take pills to extend our lives, right? There are many ways that we can try to, put away death from our thoughts because we're uncomfortable with the idea. And yet we forget that, Jesus has given us a great gift. Jesus has given us the resurrection, which means that death does not have the final word in our lives. God is going to lift all of us up to new life. God lifted Enoch. God lifted Elijah. God possibly lifted Mary or Moses, depending on your theology. God lifted them up to be with God forever. Jesus lifted up the son of the widow of Nain. He lifted up the daughter of the centurion. And of course, he lifted up Lazarus as well by calling him from the grave. All of these were done, my friends, in the presence of the community, in front of so many witnesses, the people who are the witnesses to the greatness of God. So yes, death is personal to us, but death should be lived out, and death should be recognized by the community, whether that community is our family, our extended family, our faith community, the entire community. When we do that, we allow the community to come around us and support us, and more importantly, we live together in community, especially a faith community, so that we can lift each other up, so that we can no longer fear death. But we also show the community how we trust in God's promises, and that we do not fear death anymore. All Saints Sunday, it's an important Sunday in the church year. Again, we remember those people who lived lives of faith, and we remember how they taught us how to trust in God's promises. So I hope that helps you out for this week, my friends. Remember tomorrow those who have passed away in your life and how they blessed your life, and how you look to them and the ways that they struggled with adversity, the ways that they managed their lives, the ways that they shed love upon their family. Remember those saints, and of course the saints that are around us right now. So remember, it's not the church that you belong to that makes your faith life important. It's not the theologian you follow. What's important is how you live out your life, remembering the two commandments: love God with all your heart, mind, and strength, love your neighbor as yourself. My friends, go out and be someone's thankful this week. God bless you.